Hey, what's good, everyone? Welcome to another reading. This is going to be a reading on blessings. I'm not sure if I've done a blessings one recently. It's going to be my luck that the last video was on blessings, but it feels like I haven't done a video on blessings recently. So I've got my morning coffee here, sipping away. I hope that you guys are doing well. I hope your life is blessed as it is, and it's just a miracle to get even more blessings into your wonderful life. Regardless, like I said, this reading is going to be about blessings. As always, we've got pile number 1, pile number 2, and pile number 3. Get yourself comfortable. Get yourself your coffee or your tea if you need to. And we'll get stuck into pile number 1s. Pile 1s. Excuse my voice, that is literally just the morning croaks. I'm thankfully not sick. I'm complicating life here today. This is like a complicated reading. Or I should say, spirit is complicating life. Now, I'm not sure if this is the symbol at the start of the reading. I'm definitely not intending it to be. But it's definitely got the same vibe. I'm not sure if you're getting it, pile 1s. But it's almost like the symbol at the start of the reading, but it's in 3D, you know. I think isometric is the view that it's called. I could keep going here, but I'm not. Because I think we've, at least I'm getting that nudge from spirit, like, yeah. Kind of that's enough to the point. I advise you, pile number 1s, you could possibly even look at the starting symbol on the pick a card part of the reading and see what's different about these two symbols. They might be completely different, right? Or they might be similar, but then just with certain differences. And I want you to kind of think about what those differences are. Like, say it out loud. Like, for example, this reminds me a little bit of a J. You might have J in your name, like a Juliet or a Julie, Julian, Joe, Joseph, Jackie, Jacqueline, Jack. I'm just spurring off random names here. Or you might have like a J in your name somewhere, like a surname. I was trying to think of a name that has J in between but doesn't start with it, but the only name I could think of was Koj. There's probably loads of others, but Koj was the only one that was coming into my mind. So look, pile number 1s, for example, this reminded me of a J, and let's say look back at pile number 1's pile, and let's say this letter or this symbol that looked like a J had a dot on it. So what I want you to do, I know this sounds quite complicated, but this is what Spirit's given me. Take that vocabulary and see if you can make sense of it. So, for example, it would be, it's the same but without a dot above it. It's the same but without a dot above it. So how does that make sense to you? Like, so for example, I could lose you here. Pole number one, you have to be kind of a bit of a deep thinker, or at least a deep intuitive, to kind of follow along with this. But it's the same but without a dot above it. For me, like Spirit's given me, like your blessing, for example, would be you're the same but without a dot above it. So it's like, that could be, if there was a dot above it, you might have got rid of something. You know, like people say that there's a cloud above someone's head. Or you could say that there was maybe even a spirit above someone's head. I guess on the we're talking about blessings here, so this doesn't really count, but like it reminds me a little bit of like the halo above someone. The dot above a J is a little bit like the J's halo. J in lowercase. The dot is like the halo. So it would be you're missing the halo. That is not much of a blessing, so we're not gonna stick with that one. But that's what I want you to do. And then, like, however you perceive these little rods or walls, for example, I'm getting almost pile number ones. If I was to summarize your reading without you doing the work, which I hope you do the work, and kind of just speak those words out and see if you can find any clues there. It's almost like walls have been removed, you know, like remaining parts of these walls, if you like, but the walls have been removed. And I think, you know, that's very symbolic for this reading. Pile number one's your blessing is that you've removed walls. And in turn, that's almost giving you a clear visual on the blueprint of possibly your life. You've removed walls. So you might be happy or disappointed for this pile number ones that you're going to have to kind of go into your reading yourself, do a bit of investigation work. But I don't know, I think that's a positive thing, because I feel like that's going to be very personal to you. So see if you can see any differences or any things that stick out to you between your pile selection, image, and this one. And just say those words out loud and see if there's any clues in there, and that's where your blessing's going to be. If you're unable to do that, like I said, I think a good round or summary would be removing of walls. So pile ones, I hope you enjoyed the reading. If you did, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the If You Pause website, ifyoupause.com, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Okay, welcome, pile twos. Hope you're well. Blessing. This reminds me slightly of a reading I did not too long ago. It's got a similar energy. I'm not going to tell you what reading it was. but it was actually pile number 3s before. And there's a continuing energy here. Pile number 2s of complication. Pile number 1s, and obviously continuing here, which is a headache for me. Don't want to be complacent in my own intuitive readings. But I do wish sometimes that Spirit would make it easy for me. But there's an essence here of complicated. These blessings are complicated. Which makes me even think here, like, there may be these blessings that are coming forward. They may be connected. And excuse my washing machine in the background, I can't blame that on any of my neighbours. That's 100% me, y'all. I just wasn't thinking I was going to be doing a reading this morning. I can't remember what I was going to say there, but I think I was just talking about the complications. It was reminding me of, like, there's a complexity with these blessings which remind me of, like, out of this realm, quantum kind of energy. What do you see? What do you feel? Pile number 2s. See, I'm almost calling you pile number 3s. I think you're gonna know which reading if you picked it. I'm talking about. I kind of referenced like a tree of life. And it was kind of psychedelic. Now this is more like Tron, futuristic. I'm probably pretty certain you don't even know what that is, pile number 2s. And I am in the same boat. Only that it's got very much that energy of, like, if I was to put out my hand and then I was to click my fingers and then you used to see 5 of my hands repeat, and then I move my hand and those other hands move at the same time, a bit like interstellary. I'm not even sure if that's the right movie to reference, but I'm not sure if you know what I mean, Pile 2. It's got that energy to it. The interesting thing here, though, is that the energy highlight here is probably the blessing that you're coming into is like a new portal kind of energy. Some of the things that are sticking out to me here to highlight is that none of these portals are the same. That's the bit that's kind of confusing me. So if it was my hand, it's almost like the hand would be different in each layer, in each mirror. It would be a bigger hand, a smaller hand, a hand with 6 fingers, a hand with 2 fingers, you know, like especially look at this one here. Ironically, it reminds me a little bit of a Z, which is my nickname on here. Not to make the reading about me, but it did remind me of a Z. Um, and yeah, I guess you could argue like maybe 5 portals here. I don't think we are limited to 5 portals or 5D. I think it goes beyond that, but uh, something quite interesting that did come through there was, and I guess you could say that this was more logically thought than intuitively. But if there was say there was 5 dimensions, and one argues now that we're in 3D, and then there's this one that's the 2D here. And as I said, that reminded me of where that reminded me of the letter Z. And my ego wanted to go, oh, but that's 2 dimension. That's lower than where we are now. That's simplified. That's lesser. That's my ego at play. And then my intuition was like, why can't you bring information from that realm? There was something about my intuition or my God connection with God which was saying, what's to tell you that the God energy isn't almost like, for example, like 0? And in many ways we get further away from God as the dimensions go. So like, I'll give you an example, right? And I'm not saying that this is an easy thing to argue here, and I'm not saying it's absolute truth either, but it was just coming to me. We currently see the dimensions as like lower and higher. But when you kind of think about the universe in all forms, it's much more, well, for one, it's much more complex than that. And it's much more 3D than that. So it's like, imagine the solar system, the sun. It's a 3D thing. The sun being at the center of that solar system. As you get further away from it, it gets colder. It gets, Pluto is the coldest planet that we know of in our solar system, I believe, or at least a large planet. So like Spirit was kind of giving me that nudge as well. It's like, imagine this was a 3D image. So imagine these were like the rays of the sun, Like, so imagine more of these coming out. And in the middle, you have that sun or that godlike energy. So Spirit was kind of reminding, to be honest, it's not to say that this is the way that it is, because in many ways that doesn't make too much sense either, but like the dimensions being layered up upon each other doesn't make any sense either, but what I just said doesn't really make too much sense too. But kind of what God was giving me there was that, to be honest, it was to humble yourself and realize that, it's kind of beyond us. So I think the lesson, or your blessing, part number 2, is kind of what I just explained there, is that just how I thought, oh man, the 2D, that's whack. That's not high vibrational. Spirit was kind of trying to just nudge me to say that I've got the perspective wrong there. It's not like any vibration is better than the other. They're just different tiers. and they're useful for different things. And spirit was kind of giving me like the one dimension, for example, or you could say even the zero dimension, is very good for obviously clarity and simplicity, right? It's like in that dimension, you're able to get clarity. There's not much a mess, you know, it's straightforward. I was getting that kind of energy, and I was like, to be honest, we could do with a little bit more of that in society right now. Would you not agree? Don't you think things are a little bit, like, in many ways, like, too complicated right now? I think there are. I think there's too many ways to offend people. There's to be honest, there's too many career paths at the moment too, you know? And then there's also too many, like, there's too many careers at the moment which aren't that useful. You know, smite me down, part number 2, or let God smite me down, I should say. But you know, like, even me being on YouTube right now, it's like sometimes you have to really rein it in and say, like, what value do you provide? There's so many people who are using internet as a tool, which I think is amazing, but there's just so much noise and sometimes so little value provided that sometimes I think, or it's not even sometimes I think, that's exactly why I would never like give up my other passion of architecture for something like this because it's building real things, you know, and I'm a fan of the virtual world, but like there needs to be more of a push on building real things, you know, and it kind of comes beautifully back to this reading pile too. It's because it's like the further away you get away from the 3D, the further you get away from actually building real things. And I think building things in the virtual world, like I said, it's a great thing. I'm not against it. But like, I think society or humanity has to be careful that you know, we're not taken away from like this reality too. Like, while we're in this human vessel, this is something that we've got to be very aware of. You know, like when we die and we go into another dimension, sure, build etherical things in the etherical world. In that dream world, when you go to sleep, build what you like in that world. But when you're here, it's like the world needs a little bit more simplicity. And in terms of even architecture, I don't even mean that we need another skyscraper. Like, Lord God, we don't. You know, in my training, we used to see that as the epitome of success. But I even just mean like connecting with earth in architecture, like, you know, like how those Aborigines and almost more primitive people, like they're just connected with nature and earth. Like, I think the world knows this already. Like, we know that we need more of that. It's just we're locked in these kind of glass cells, trying to imitate it instead of actually being it. So part number 2 is that this is kind of don't know how to explain it, but it kind of wavered on I hope you was able to get something from that. I hope you was able to get your blessing from that too. Maybe everything that I'm talking about really resonates with you, and you're kind of realizing that that is a blessing in current society, seeing that different perspective. It's a unique perspective, and we can watch videos like this or videos in this space and think that it's not very unique, but just trust me, all you have to do is step outside, wherever you may be, Part 2s, and you will quickly realize that these kind of thoughts aren't on your average person's mind. They may get excited when you bring certain ideas to them, but generally they are kind of locked in that system. So that's a blessing in itself, Part 2s, even if you resonated with this. And I encourage you to go a little bit deeper with this image and see if you can spot any other patterns or clues in there for you. If you like the reading, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. Check out the If You Pause website, ifyoupause.com, and thank you for being here, Part 2s. Alright, pile number 3s. Hope you're doing good. What's your vibe before my pen touched the paper? What's your vibe, pile 3s? What was you getting? I said in pile number 1s and pile number 2s, the common thread between all of these readings today was complexity. So let's see if that means anything to you. But, there's almost, and I apologize, there's almost like a nervousness with my readings today, because the way that these downloads are coming in is a little bit overwhelming. What's the black box? What's a black box? So I'm almost getting two things there, like I think they call it a black box on an aeroplane. The black box is like a tracking device on planes to know where it is. We have some kind of like energy coming from above here. No idea how I'm gonna draw this V-pile freeze. Let's just go for it. Okay, no, spirit's giving me something. Okay. So pulse threes, you might be going through. You might be going through like a lot of energy. Upgrades at the moment, because that's the way that this energy was kind of coming through. Intensity. I want you to try and embrace that energy of kind of pausing, as I just did, where I was like, this is a bit too much. So I waited. Obviously, the whole brand or name of this channel is If You Pause. And I've had a few people, ironically, kind of message me recently saying, I really love the name of your brand. Not to say that it was extremely unique. I'm sure many companies have used pause in their name. But I've had a few messages recently from people who say, I think people need to be reminded of that more. And I think why that's important, pole number 3, is because, yeah, sure, it's currently a trend at the moment to meditate more. But we're not talking just about meditation here. We're talking about the ability to pause, right? Meditation. Yeah. Sorry about the church bells. Meditation, of course, you can pause while you meditate. But meditation can sometimes be to focus, can be to reflect. It's not always about that pause moment, right? And the pause that I'm talking about, in this reading, pole number 3 is the ability to, it's almost taking that deep breath. I think some of the movies say like wusa energy, wusa, it's that. That's not necessarily meditation. That's not sitting in the yoga position and playing waterfall music. We recommend that kind of pause in here, but there's a wide variety of pausing. And even with this reading, it was like, when you're in that overwhelming phase of receiving downloads or, it's basically that energy. Like there's a very much an emphasis here of receiving information. It could possibly be letting go of information too, but I feel like this black box, this locator, which is you, is just receiving so much. And Spirit is saying to you, just pause on that energy. I remember there was a very big turning point in my life, and I don't mean this in a way which was career involved or romantically involved, but I remember it being a big turning point for me because there was this one night where I was sleeping and I just got so many downloads, and I remember kind of speaking to my partner or my ex at the time and like talking about it because I realized the difference was real clear for me of when I'm just going to sleep and I'm just having an anxious night. There's something bothering me. And then when I'm actually receiving, like, I think it was the first time in my life where I was able to go, no, this is different. I can really feel or see the difference between the energy. I could understand myself so much better. And the beauty of that lesson, why it was so big for me, is because, well, for one, no one can tell you when you're getting that kind of information. So someone might just say to you, hey, look, Zed, or whatever your name is, you're stressed, that's why you can't sleep. Give me 1 second, Paul Freeze. There was a little bit of background noise there. I didn't want it to interrupt the reading. So someone could look at your situation and go, yeah, you're just stressed, that's why you can't sleep. And that's okay, that's a valid point. That's probably what most people think. But when you can distinguish the difference between receiving downloads and just a bad day or a stressful day, that's very important, because I'll tell you why. The way that we handle it is different. So, for example, uh, right, if you're anxious, if you had a stressful day and you can't sleep, it might be a good time to put on a meditation video on how to de-stress, right? But if you're receiving downloads and you put a meditation video on how to de-stress, it's not going to do shit. What you need to do is one of two things. You need to speak to your higher self or to God and say, okay, I surrender to this and give me the focus to receive these downloads clearly. Or you need to speak to God and say, look, I really need to sleep now for whatever reason. Can these downloads come through me at a different time? Do you see there's two different ways of, well, not two different ways, there's probably many different ways of handling it, but it's a different way of handling it. And I remember this particular day, it was a moment where I was having these downloads, and I remember just being in gratitude because even though my life was pretty stressful at the time, I had my own business and I had control of my life. And I remember thinking, do you know what, I don't have to wake up 6 o'clock tomorrow in the morning. So receiving these downloads at 4 o'clock in the morning wasn't the end of the world to me. And I remember just being really, really grateful for that, because I'd had certain times in my life where if I was receiving these damn downloads at 4 o'clock in the morning and I had my job to go to the next day, it's like I was fucked, basically. And I didn't know how to handle that before. So it was a big turning point for me. And I can't even tell you exactly when that was, but I just remember that night where I was able to be like, there is nothing to worry about. I can receive these downloads right now. And, there's been other times, because even when you're running a business, any entrepreneurs out there know, you can still have moments where you need to be up at 6 in the morning to get shit done. And you might have to postpone those downloads. But I remember that specific night, I was like, there's nothing to worry about. It's the timing is awful. I wish it was at a different time, but this isn't nothing to be stressed about. So part number 3 is, I feel like the blessing that you have, that you're coming into as well, for one, you've got the gift to even receive downloads. So give yourself an amen, hallelujah for that. There's some people out here who are dead as fuck, who don't receive shit. And what a boring life that will be. So give thanks to God for that. And for 2, I just think you're becoming better at fine-tuning here. We're dealing with a box, and someone might see that as negatively, like boxes are quite rigid. But I just feel part number 3 is that you're applying some form of structure to the way that you're receiving these downloads. possibly through the way that I've just told you in this video, or possibly that you've come up with a few different ways yourself. But I think this image in itself is almost like a good way of summarizing the energy that you're going through and the blessing that you're going through right now, is that you've formed a structure which channels this energy divinely, efficiently, and quite beautifully, I might add. So yeah, Pal Freeze, if you've got any other things to add to this, feel free to add it in the comments. A really nice reading. And all I can say is thank you for being here. If you like the video, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. Check out the If You Pause website, ifyoupause.com. I heard my washing machine end in this reading, so I'm going to go and take out my washing. Thank you for bearing with me for any background noise in the video, Pal Freeze. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.